Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first stream from the CoEngineers team, where we look to explore things like Claude Code to make them accessible for non-technical people. Before we kind of get kicked off, I'd just like to introduce myself. So it's been a real kind of pleasure getting to start to build some community learning. Community learning has been at the heart of stuff that I've been doing for a very long time, and just getting back into it really now. So a little bit about my background. I started my career a long time ago in the RAF, in the Air Force, and I've done a whole bunch of things in the RAF, mainly to do with air traffic control and search and rescue. And quite late in my career, I got the bug. I got the software bug. So I was involved with a small software development project about the time of London Olympic Games. So 2012. I was about 25 at the time, and I decided to leave the Air Force to become a software engineer. After I left there, I worked with a number of big global SIs, so mainly Atos, Capgemini, in a small stint with IBM. Then I joined a really big training company called QA. So I would say that kind of where I've been in my kind of career has been in tech, sales, and training. That's kind of been the kind of three things I've been doing. In QA, I've done a whole bunch of jobs, some to do with training, some to do with pre-sales. But ultimately, kind of when I was in that company, I looked over software and data portfolios and building products, mainly in the early career space. Then after that, opportunity came up to do a number of startups, which was incredibly fun with some amazing people. And now I work with an amazing company called MediaZoo as their chief product officer, where we're launching some really cool new products this year. And also we've got this free streaming service. So me and a really good friend of mine started a really cool initiative called Teach the Nation to Code a number of years ago. And Teach the Nation to Code was all about making coding accessible for people. And I think we had about 10,000 people join them streams. So I think there's only 2 people in the stream at the moment, but hopefully as we start to get bigger, we will get more things over time. So what I'd like to do is just kind of get into it. So this is going to be the shortest of the streams. So this is going to be the first of a 4 series of kind of making coding and building things with Claude Code accessible. So I just want to kind of go through what the kind of rough breakdown is, what we're going to cover in the session, and then we're going to actually get hands-on with Claude Code and see why you might want to use this, because it could make your life a whole bunch easier. But this is what we're going to be covering over the next 4 weeks. So really sorry about the stream yesterday. So we were meant to be live every Saturday. I kind of woke up in the morning and I went to press live in OBS, and then it comes up with a verification message saying you need to wait for 24 hours to get live. So I emailed YouTube support and they basically said there's nothing to do. So AI cannot solve everything. So what we're going to do is walk through the course today, the course that me and the CoEngineers team have built. And I think it's a really interesting course because it kind of reinvents the typical learning model. So when you've been working maybe with courses before, so say it's a course that's face-to-face or a course that's online, typically they've kind of got these kind of key stages. They've got some kind of theory stage, maybe some kind of lab stage, and then some kind of application stage. And sometimes that's going to be in different applications, in PowerPoints and videos, and then the lab's going to be in one place, and then maybe the case study is going to be in one place as well. What's really different about what we're kind of exploring here is how we can do everything inside one place, inside the LLM. And that LLM at the moment is Claude and Claude Code, but the same practices kind of apply or are starting to apply across the board. So like at the moment, Claude Code is probably the market leader within kind of using an LLM, using your kind of computer and operating system, and they've got a whole bunch of infrastructure that they build. But quickly, Gemini is building tools here and that type of stuff. So we've got lots of other things that we can explore over the next couple of weeks. So what we're going to do after this session is next week we're going to explore building a survey tool. So me and my colleague Ed is going to build a bare bones infrastructure for different projects. And then we're going to use something called spec-driven development to walk through for non-technical people how they can build some of these tools. Next week, what we're going to do is build like a project management tool. So something like Monday.com, Airtable, the one of your choice. And we're going to walk through that. And on the final day of the kind of co-engineers phase 1, we're going to go and try and build a CRM. So I spent a whole bunch of money on CRM products over the last couple of years. And really what I've mainly used it for is capturing leads, making sure that it's in some kind of deal pipeline, and then some kind of reach out. So when I go through some of the kind of more obscure features, typically I don't need some of them. So we'll see if we can build one that maybe that you could use. So this is really for like small businesses, or for individuals wanting to really kind of get some new skills. So I'm not necessarily saying that we should completely abandon our CRMs if we're in a FTSE 250 company and you with no coding experience can go and write a version of HubSpot, but we'll go and start to explore it. So that is the plan for today. And things we're going to go through, we're going to first of all get to know the co-engineer story, get to know the case study that we're going to be work with. And then we're going to go quickly through how you can set this up. So it's really easy to get set up with this code. All you really need is a license and to run a few commands, and then Claude Code helps you with the rest. So we're going to go through the setup. Then we're going to go through from a high level the 20 labs that we've written for you, and they kind of go in a sequential way. So we go through from writing data models to taking data that we've kind of got within our organization and put it into that data model, and then starting to build real cool things with it. So I've built a whole bunch of different assets as examples. So things like statement of works, things like project proposals, that type of stuff. And that's all kind of been built from the baseline outwards. And then we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive in how it works. So we'll run one or two of the labs. So what I'm not going to do is, like, these labs take a little bit of time to run. They need to call Claude, they need to get LM, and they need to get the data. To run through every single 20 lab would probably take a good couple of hours, and you're just going to be sitting me watching the LLM thinking. But we will go through one or two of them. But more importantly, what I've done is I've ran them all through, and I've got the outputs, and that'll be the final thing we're going to go through. We're going to walk through the completed example, and then we're going to then go on and then just wrap up the session. So before we move on, anything in the comments, any thoughts from anyone? And if not, we will get started. Perfect. So I'm just going to get us to know the team a little bit more. So what we've done is we've built everything around a really case study that we think is it will be relatable to many people that have worked in small businesses. So the organization that we're going to introduce you to is a company called Growth Path Consulting. And the purpose of Growth Path is to help small businesses either raise money or sell their companies. So Growth Path are all about growing your business and selling your business. And Growth Path have got a little bit of a problem. So although they help businesses grow and have best practices, they don't really keep very good track of their own data. So they don't, I don't think, what's that old adage? They don't drink their own champagne. They don't eat their own dog food. So they've got their data all over their enterprise. And what's happened is the CEO, who's this charismatic honey badger called Hoddle, and basically what Hoddle has done, he's been at the pub, had a few beers, and he has sent the wrong information to a wrong customer with a wrong proposal. And that's all because his data wasn't very clear and securely marked. So what we're going to have a look through is look through a little bit through this kind of case study. So in this case study, we've got a few different characters. We have got Hoddle, the honey badger, who's the CEO. We have got Flora, who is our customer success operations person, so kind of sales focused. We have got Isla, who is our marketer, and then we've got Angus, who's kind of our technical operations guy. And really, like, as I said, the whole purpose of this kind of case study is all about this company that's Edinburgh based. They're called Growth Path Consulting, and the whole purpose of this company, as I said, is for them to help us grow. And so what we're going to do in this case study is we're going to apply some of these things to Growth Path to help them organize their data and start to make the data work for them. So there's a number of different episodes where you can get to know them. So in the first part, Hoddle has got an absolute knowledge crisis, so his inbox is absolutely full. The files are all over the place within the business. Meetings are very kind of scattergram and nothing happens at the end of the meetings and that type of stuff. And then in the second scene, then we've got Flora, who is starting to try to think about how we can start to structure some of that chaos. So we're going to look through a method called PARA, Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archives. It's a really famous knowledge management repository, or personal knowledge managed repository system, made famous by, I think his name's Tiago Forte, and we're going to look how we can use that to start to structure some of our data. Then we're going to look at how we can add some metadata so we can make the LLM work for us, and a whole bunch of other things. And then finally, what we're going to do for growth path, we're going to then start to build a number of workflows. So after we've got the data all into a good place, then we're going to first write some spreadsheets from the data. We're going to write some PowerPoints from the data. We're going to write some statement of works from the data. We're going to write some other types of things from the data. And then finally, we're going to show some more complex examples that hook with some external APIs like Gamma, if you've come across it before. So Gamma is a really great tool for building complex presentations. We're going to build some podcasts with ElevenLabs, and that's all from that structured data model. So just before we start, I'm just going to ping some information over, and then we're going to go on to the next part. So we've kind of got to know the team a little bit better. If you want, I've tried to do some funny-ish type Dilbert style cartoons so you can really get to know the team. So I've been putting these on LinkedIn every day. So we've got this new paper that we've released, the Highland Herald, and basically each day you get to see what the problem of the lab's trying to solve. So on the first one, it's looking at Hoddle actually using Claude Code, and then starting to think about structuring the resources and that type of stuff. So these all equate to the different modules and labs that you're going to cover. But then the kind of core thing then is, how do we get set up? How do we start to work with this? So absolutely everything is on our CoEngineers website. So if you go to CoEngineers.ai and you go to get started, you literally can follow it through step by step to go and make this work. And I've had some really lovely comments from people on LinkedIn and private messages saying that it is fairly easy. So if you just follow this through, then literally you can go through from sorting a knowledge repository to taking different artifacts that you've got and putting it into that knowledge repository, all the way through to building different artifacts. So building PowerPoints and that type of stuff, to integrating with some more complex type systems. So introduction, we've kind of just covered there and spoke through it. So from an installation point of view, it's fairly simple what you need. So if you're either on Mac or you are on or you're on Windows or Linux, the core thing that you need to install is a JavaScript runtime called Node.js. So there's a couple of different ways to kind of do that. If you are unsure, just ask Claude, can you help me install Node.js, or just go through these different instructions here. So if you're on Mac, there's a really great tool for installing programs called Brew, or you could install it directly from the Node.js website. And on Windows, just go to the Node.js website. So what Node.js is going to do is it's going to run the Claude Code program. So that's what's going to allow us to run Claude Code. And after you've installed Node.js, then you're going to use Node and its package manager. So npm stands for Node Package Manager. And then you're going to use that to install Claude Code. So Claude Code is a terminal-based tool. And what I mean by a terminal-based tool is that you access it from the command line. So after you've installed Node, then the next thing that you would do is you would run this command here, npm install -g, And this is like the only really hard bit for non-technical people to get their head around, because after that, you're inside Claude, then you can ask Claude to help do the questions. So if you have got any questions on this, then just give me a shout. I'm happy to jump on a quick 5-minute session with you if you can't work it out. But literally the kind of two things are install Node.js and then install Claude Code. And then the final thing that you just need to do is you need to authorize Claude. So actually, let's have a look at what's happened there. So I've installed Node already. I've installed um, the Claude Code program. So now I can just run Claude from here, and then I can go yes there. And this is literally me working with Claude from my computer now. So anything else that I need, I can ask Claude. So for example, if I had wanted to install a different program, so let's say I wanted to install Gemini CLI, I could say, Claude, can you help me install the Gemini CLI? So literally at this point now, we have got the power of the Claude LLM, but we've also got Claude having access to our computer. So what Claude is doing at the moment, it is going to a web search and it's looking for how do we install this Gemini CLI tool. So it's going and getting that information. And then what it's going to do is going to try and install it for us. So with great power comes great responsibility, and really read through these instructions. And if there's something that doesn't look quite right, then just don't let it do it. So what's really good about Claude as well, before it goes and does anything for you, it will ask you to go in through it. So it's basically saying here, first you need Node.js installed, so very similar to before. Then you have to run npm install Google, this one here. Or you can run this one here. So we could actually ask Claude to do it for us. So I could say, can you do this for me? And then Claude is going to actually go and run that command for us. And you can see now what he's actually doing is running that command, and he's running that command for us. So after you've installed Claude, you can use Claude for so many wonderful things in your computer. You can use it to create files, you can use it to write scripts, you can use it to connect to external systems. So you can see now that it's installed Gemini and it's running Gemini version. So now what we can actually see is that Claude has done that for us, and it's all working with that LLM. It's asked us to set this API key thing. Don't need to worry about it at the moment. This is just a worked example. So we can do lots of different things with Claude. We could say, can you create a new folder on desktop and add a file called hello. In fact, let's do something even cooler. Let's say, can you create a new folder on the desktop and create a new file that has best practices on how to use Claude Code. So if you think here, what you can get a lot of the time, you need to build these best practice guides within your business. So literally, you can use that two things. So basically, what Claude is going to go now, it's going to go out to the internet, it's going to research the best practice. So you can see now it's using this command, so make directory. So it's going to create a new folder on my desktop. And the really cool thing here is asking my permission. So like what I can say here, yes, I'm allowing you to do this command. Yes, I can always allow you to do this command on my desktop. No, I can't to do it. And when we go through some later labs, we'll go through security in a bit more detail. But the stuff that we're going to be doing is going to be the absolute basics type of things that we can use with the computer and the operating system. So if we go to yes, and then what it's doing is making a directory at the moment. And then what it's going to then go and do, it's going to go out to the internet, it's going to research the information on Claude Code, and then it's going to put it into a document. So if you can see now, we have got this folder called Claude Code Guide, and inside there's nothing in there yet, and there's nothing in there yet because it's still doing that research. So now you can see what it's saying to us. It's going out and it's saying this is all the information it is going to get for us. It's going to get information for the best practice guide. It's going to have a get started column, all that stuff there. Are you happy with that? I'm going to go yes. and it's asking me again, am I allowed to go and add that file to that desktop? And now you can see it's right in that file to the desktop. So if I go back in again now, you can see we've got that folder, that file in there of Claude Code best practices. So unbelievably powerful. So you can use that same approach for research, marketing, building customer proposals, that type of stuff. So a whole bunch of cool things that we can do. So that's really it for the setup. The only thing that you would have to do is you have to run this Claude auth at the kind of first step, just to link it to your subscription account. So this is a paid service. You will need to get a Claude Code account. And if you kind of look at the Claude Code pricing at the moment, or Claude pricing, not that one. Let me just get a new incognito window, Claude pricing. And go through the pricing at the moment. So for £17 for the month, you can get access to Claude, so you can use Claude Code. You're not going to have a huge amount of tokens that you can use here, but you have more than enough to do the labs over a number of days. And there is more kind of complex plans. So literally, this is really the only tool that I pay for now. I've got another couple of small APIs, but the main thing that I pay for is kind of Claude, and the majority of my workflows are either in internal LLMs that I kind of use for kind of cleaning up some data, or external LLMs. So that's Claude Code, and that's going through the installation process. The only other tool that I really recommend people use during this course is a tool called Obsidian. So Obsidian is a Markdown reader, and it's a free tool. And what Markdown is, it's a structured language format, unbelievably simple. So if you think about Microsoft Word being a pretty complex tool where you've got titles and headings and macros and tables and all this type of things you can use, Markdown's a really simple language where they've just got things like headings, tags, paragraphs, and Obsidian is a Markdown editor. And what's really important because of that is one of the main ways that these language models speak to each other and give out outputs is in Markdown. So like the one kind of really core skill that you could look to invest in is in Markdown. So for that, for going to get Obsidian, if you'd want to use it, it's Obsidian here. You can download the binary for either Mac or for your operating system, and then it looks a little bit like this, or it looks exactly like this. So here is all of my Obsidian Vault. This is the Vault that I actually use every day, and this is what we're kind of going to go through. So if we go through Growth Path, for example, and we go through the case study, we've got this kind of information. And if you look here, it's just got some standard tags. So we've got like this here for like a heading. We've got this for a smaller heading, this kind of 3/ tags. We've got these asterisks that make it in bold. So it's a really simple language to learn. But the really reason why it's good is because LLMs work really well with it. So if we want to go in, say, for example, we go and extract a whole bunch of data, we make the data clean, we can store it in this Markdown format, and then we can do really cool things with it with the LLM. So this is how it looks when you're in it, and this when it looks like in view mode. So basically here we've got who our company is, what they do, target clients, mission statements, that type of stuff. So loads of great information here, and it's all in that particular Markdown format. So that's Obsidian. So just to kind of go through that again quite quickly, as I said, these are all here for you to go and look at. So step number 1 is to install Node.js on your computer. So that's going to be the runtime where it's going to be running the Claude Code program. Step number 2 is to install Claude Code in its own right. So take Claude Code so that you can access it. And then step number 3 is actually linking it to your Claude Code subscription. And then optionally, if you want to work with the Markdown files that we've prepared for you, then what you would go and do is then use a tool like Obsidian. Then the only other thing that you need to do is you need to install the labs that we've written for you. So all our labs are inside GitHub. So GitHub is a place that we typically would store code. But you don't really need to know about this because now you've got your Claude Code running. You can just run this command here, and essentially what this command here is saying is download this course that John and the CoEngineers team has created for me so that we can actually access it. So that's the whole point of what that is doing here. If you're not comfortable for running that command, you can also download the zip folder. So just a zip folder like anything else, you would double click the zip folder and then you would open it in your tool of choice, ours being Obsidian. So like I'll just show you that so you can actually see how it looks. So I'll open up my terminal again. And we could ask Claude to do this, but let's just do this ourselves. So I'm going to go onto my desktop. So I'm on my desktop now, so that's what that command's in there. As I said, like we don't have to do the commands ourselves. We can ask Claude to do it for us, but I'm just going to run it myself. So basically I'm going to take that command and then let's just run that again. I don't think I copied it properly. It's because I've got that little hashtag in there. And this is like a really interesting one. So because this command's not quite right, what we could actually do here is that we could ask Claude to go and do it for us. So all that's done now is that it's go out and got all that information and unzipped it. So now if I go into my desktop, you can see now we've got all the information for our program there. So our case study and all our different labs that we're going to go through now. So before we start to get into the labs, any questions from anyone on the screen? I'll just ping Ed to make sure we're still going good. Cool. So now what we're going to go through then is we're going to go through why you would want to do this. So we're going to talk through the actual labs themselves and what each one of them does and why it might be valuable to you. After we've done that, we're going to run some of the labs so you can see a little bit of the learning experience. And then finally, before we close the stream, I'm going to take you through what the outputs look like. And when you see the outputs, you're going to realize fairly quickly that you can save a tremendous amount of time by doing this. So basically, we have broken into 4 different modules. Module number 1 is around building our knowledge repository, what I call our vault. Module number 2 is about processing existing data that we've got and put it into the vault. Module number 3 is about taking the existing data that we've just put into the vault, we've made clean and making it work for us. So building brand asset generators, building proposals, financial forecasts, business plans, and statements of work. And then finally, starting to think about how we integrate and work with external systems. So how you access these labs. So for each one, it gives an overview, what you're going to cover in the module for the week. It's got how it relates to the case study. And then it's got my main man, Hoddle, and he just got some inspiring words of inspiration, equally as much for me as for the people doing the course. But really, like all you have to do, the only thing that you need to do after you've set Claude Code up is you need to open Claude and then run the command for the lab. And then the lab takes you through everything else. So, and I was saying that how we're really excited about this new modality of learning. And there's some really interesting people that have been doing this now for a while. What we are kind of doing is everything's inside of the LLM, so we're not having to go to external systems. So in the first one, and in lab number 1, you just have a conversation with Claude. He basically has a chat with you, or you kind of go through it with him, and then he has he kind of just like takes you through it, through what you're going to be covering. Then on day 2, for the people that have been doing it, you set up your overall folder structure. So as I said before, we're kind of working on the shoulders of giants. This kind of concept came up with a guy called Tiago Forte. He's got a really good book about building digital second brains. And essentially, in Lab 2, essentially what you're going to be doing, so a lot of essentialies, what we're going to be doing is we're going to build a folder structure where we're going to be saving our information. And then after that, we start to look at different folder templates we can do in that high-level structure. So in the high-level structure, we use a method called PARA. So it stands for projects, areas, archives, and resources. And essentially, like, these are the kind of big pillars that Tiago suggests where you would save your typical data in a day-to-day. So a project is something that's got a fixed deadline and outcome. An area is something that you're exploring for a larger amount of time. So maybe a book. A resource is something that you might want to reuse in the future. So that could be a podcast transcript, something about a book. And an archive is something that's finished and you want to save for reference later on. So inside that then, and if you think you've got a project, you might have different types of projects. You might have projects for customers, projects for research. Essentially, in the next one, we're going to help you set up a number of folder architectures to kind of store different type of projects, different types of areas, that type of stuff. Then next, what we're going to do is look at some different document templates. So say, for example, we're using the customer folder infrastructure and some common customer templates we might use. A template for meetings, a template for emails, a template for our monthly board reviews. So essentially, the next thing we're going to do is to start to use some standard templates to kind of populate those para second brain vault type stuff. And then last but not least, and why this is different from other things that you might going to do, we're going to enrich the document with metadata. And what metadata is just basic like tags. So if you've worked with SharePoint before and you've put some tags into it, or you've put some additional information into, for example, a document, all we're going to do is put that metadata into the document. And the whole purpose of that is to help AI find the right information when we go into build assets later on. So by the end of module 1, and for those who have followed through the 5 labs so far, you will have an end-to-end knowledge repository system. So you have went through building the overall high-level folder architecture. Then you've went through the specific folder architectures for the different types of things you're going to be doing. Then you're going to go through your client or your different types of documents, and then you're going to enrich that document. So that's essentially what you do on week 1. In week 2, what we then do is that we take different file formats and we process it into the folders that we bring. When I take you through the worked example in a little minute, this will make a lot more sense. But essentially, like, we look at different file formats, so like Word documents, PowerPoints, Excels, videos, transcripts, and also images, and we process that information and we put that into our digital vault. So if you're a training company and you have got, I don't know, 10,000 PowerPoints with different presentations, you've got 100,000 documents, what we can do is we can go through this way to process the data, get it stored into our knowledge management repository, and then we can do some really interesting stuff with it. And as I said, the target audience really here is this small, medium businesses. Come at me. I know you will say, and if we've got something that's absolutely huge, millions of documents, we're probably going to have to do something a little bit more heavy lifting than just having stuff inside Markdown. But at the moment, for small businesses, this would be a very useful way to go and explore it. So then on week 3, we're going to actually start building assets with our knowledge repository. So we're going to build full proposal, and it's going to look nice. So what you're going to see, like, I speak to so many businesses where they have a tremendous amount of time building proposals and proposals templates. Sometimes you've got 2 to 3 people working on that all week. And the thing is, if you have structured the conversations with the customer well, you've cleaned the data well, then to build that proposal should take literally minutes if you've done that upfront discovery work. Same with building financial forecasts. So in this one, we're going to explore that the growth plan team are going to build a financial forecast for raising some money, a business plan and a statement of work as well. So essentially, we're going to build these different outputs using Claude, using Claude and just using our data model. And then finally, what we're going to do is we're going to explore starting to work with external systems. So we can actually hook Claude to Nano Banana. So Nano Banana is the best image model really on the market at the moment. We can hook Claude to more complex presentation tools. So there's a tool that I absolutely love called Gamma. So Gamma is a presentation tool that we can hook to. We can hook to audio tools like ElevenLabs, so we can build podcasts or real-time voice coaches. We can build digital avatars and put that over videos, so things like digital second twins. And we can build social media campaigns using things like Canva. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these today, but I'm just going to show you one or two so you can kind of get a little bit of a look and a feel for it. So let's get into it then. So I'm going to be using two tools here. For you would typically just probably use the terminal. I'm just using another tool as well because it just gives me an extra view in it as a help and an additional training aid. So for the things that you will only need is Obsidian and the terminal structure. You don't need any other fancy tools. The only reason I'm going to use another tool is because it helps me have the file and folder structure as well in one place. So here is my Obsidian vault. And all I have done is I have unzipped the training program with some additional assets that I've built this morning to kind of take you through what we've got. So first of all, what we've got is all the case study information. So here in my digital vault, we've got our growth path and business. We have got our case study. We've got a completed example that I'll take you through a little bit later. We have got all our labs and we've got some additional information. Now, you don't really need to worry about that, but the key thing to take away is when we start to be building assets, this is where it's going to be saved. So what I could do is I could go and open my terminal window here, and this is how we would go and work with it. Or what I could also do is use a different tool. So I'm going to be using a tool called Warp, but the only reason I'm going to be using this Warp tool is because it's really easy for me to show you both the folder structure, like here on the left-hand side, and also the things that we're going to be building. So if I just bring up my Warp tool, and I'm just going to say into cool. So it's exactly the same view as that you said before, but the only thing is now I've got access to this terminal as well. There is a built-in terminal tool that is a plugin terminal tool for Obsidian. It's not that good at the moment, so I would suggest that you just use the terminal tool. But as I said, just so that I can see this at the same time and so that you can see kind of what's happening, I'm just going to be using this particular tool. So just to kind of confirm what I'm doing here is this tool has got access to both the folder structure that I'm looking at, and also what it's got is that it's also got the terminal that I'm going to be working with. So all I'm going to do then is run Claude. And then, as I said before, all you need to do to go and run your relevant lab is so simple. To go and run the lab, all you have to do is go /. Oh, sorry, actually I'm in the wrong one. I actually need to be in the 60. Yeah. Sorry, I was just 1, 2 above there. So all I need to run now is /. So this is good. A little bit of real-time debugging. Okay. Sorry, so I'm just trying to find the right folder. I did practice before. Yeah, great. So this is just the folder structure that you guys will see when you download. So all you need to do to go and run a particular lab is do /command or copy from it, and then select the lab that you want to go and run. So that's literally it. So after you have done the installing for all the things that I said before, for building the first conversation, for building para, for building your folder architecture, for building the documents, all you need to do is go through the lab. So if we just run lab 2, this is going to be like where Claude helps you to go and build that para folder structure. So basically what Claude's doing at the moment is reading all the resources that we've read, so what the lab looks like. So if this was a typical learning scenario, the PowerPoint, and then really interestingly, Claude is then going to ask us a whole bunch of questions. So here it's kind of welcoming us to growth path. It's telling us a little bit about the business. Before we dive in, let me ask, where do your files currently live? Everywhere on SharePoint. So what's really great is because it's using context, it's going to answer the questions in the learning experience based upon the answers and the stuff that you give it. So we've kind of said, if at the moment we said everything looks beautiful and is stored in Markdown, then Claude is going to give us a slightly different answer. SharePoint, the classic digital labyrinth. So then he's kind of going to say what he's going to build for us. So he's going to build us an inbox, a projects, an areas, a resource, and an archive. So he's going to build all these different examples for us to go and build that para infrastructure. So essentially, as we kind of go through it, it's not just going to be asking us and telling us what it looks like. It's literally going to build it for us. So I'm going to say, can you build me an example so I can see it in a folder in courses called test? So basically what I'm kind of saying to Claude now is that I want him to actually go and build something for me. So he's thinking about, absolutely, let me start to build it. So now he's saying, I'm going to make the directory inside courses. It's going to be called test. And I'm going to have one called inbox, one called projects, one called areas, one called resources, and one called archives. So now when I press yes, and now on the left-hand side, what you can see is I've got my knowledge vault, and I've got all my different information and stuff like that. So as we go through the different labs, so when we go to the next lab, what it's going to do, so now what it's been very helpful, and it's also writing some instructions how to use each one of these folders. And it's asking me if I'm happy for it to put instructions in each one of these folders on how to work them. So yes, 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 and yes. So that's basically me saying you can build 5 new documents. And now if I just go into number 1, for example, inside inbox, you capture points for new items to be processed. Or if we click on projects, we can see active work where with a clear end date. So here it's doing all that bit of work for us. So as I said, I'm not going to go through every single one, but let's just go through one more lab and then I'm going to take you through some example outputs. So I'm going to go to no. So how we start a new session with Claude, so how we kind of tell Claude we finished with lab 1 and we want to go into the next one, I'll run the command clear. And the next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to build, let's say we're going to build a statement of work. So what was the statement of work lab again? I think it's number 4. Let me just check that one. Let's go into the website and make sure it's number 4. So sorry, it's number 5. So basically what I've got is I've got a whole bunch of mock data that I've built of a sample customer case study. So we've got the exact things that we had before. We've got our knowledge, we've got our projects and stuff like that. So I'm going to use that and ask Claude to build the information that I've had and done with the customer to build that into a sample statement of work. So we're going to go on to this time. We'll just run clear again. And then we're going to go and do this time. It's going to be cc.module3.lab5. So the statement of work generator, and it says it there. And then we could go all the way through the lab. So this is going to be once again, so it's reading the course information, it's reading from Claude, it's reading the script instructions. And then what we can then do at that point is get Claude to help us build the statement of work. So I'll make it go a little bit quicker and just say, I've done this lab before. Can you build me a sample statement of work that looks visually stunning using our case study information? So the way that we can pull that in, it works the same on the command line, is just pull in the actual folder itself. So this will take a little bit more time now. So it might have a little bit of extra questions, because essentially what we're doing here is we're bypassing the learning elements. So what he's saying, let me gather the information from the case study. So he's getting the information on the company profile. He's getting information on the lab. And then he's using something called skill. So Claude has got these things called skills, which are basically reusable processes that we can do for common tasks. So he is using the skill to build a document. So he's getting the data on the stuff that he needs for the statement of work, and he's using the document skill to go and build it out. So when I go, yes, you can go and do that, he is combining the two things, getting the data and building the actual document. So it's reading some information from one of the Claude library plugin parts that's on my system. And now what it's going to do, it's got all the information. So literally now, in that small amount of time, it's going to go and build a statement of work for us. Now that's going to probably take a minute or two, but to kind of save us a little bit of time, I'm going to go back into Obsidian and I'm going to work through a more complex example of, if you go through all this labs, of what it actually might look for you, including the statement of work. So the final part of today's session is I'm just going to go through a kind of more completed example end to end. So basically what I've done is I've applied this to the growth plan case study. And what I have then done is I've got all the outputs in this one place for each one of the labs, so you can actually see what it'll look like. So for the first week, what you build is the overall knowledge repository. So here we've got an example of the growth path, and it's got a product called data flow. So essentially what we've got here is all the information that we've done in discovery, information on proposals that we've made to growth path, meeting summaries, deliverables, reference material. So in this kind of completed example, at the end of week one, this is what you can build for your own business. So for example, and this is all mock data, nothing to do with real customer data. So we kind of go into here and we've got the initial meeting notes for a meeting that happened in Glasgow with the CEO. And then it's got a summary of the meeting, it's got the context, it's got the pain points, it's got everything. So in that week one, this is what you will be building out. So essentially what we're kind of building out here is not just the document, but is also that structured metadata that helps the AI work with it. So in lab number one for the week, what you build is the overall folder structure, projects, areas, resource, archives. In lab number two, that is, the first lab is around getting to know Claude. In lab number three, what you then get is the different templates to work with different folder structures. So here we have got one for working with customers. Then we work with the different document types and document templates. So this is document templates for discovery. And then at the fifth stage is what we do is we add all this metadata. And the whole point of adding this metadata is just to make it a lot more searchable and make it easier for the AI. So that's what we kind of get out at the end of week one. So you go through it for your company. At the end of it, you can have a very complex digital vault with all your data processed, so you can start to do rich things in from it. The next thing what we can do is that inside this inbox folder, this is where we would be putting our Word documents. This is where we would be putting our PowerPoints. And essentially all we would do at that point is that when we've got things inside our inbox, so our inbox is where the data is going to be processed, the unstructured data, the unclean data, we can put that all in there and we can just say, Claude, can you put this unstructured data, unclean data, and clean it into my knowledge repository? And it's going to pick the right project, it's going to pick the right template, and it's going to add the metadata. So that's what you do in week 2. So you take existing PowerPoint documents that you've got, Word documents that you've got, spreadsheet documents that you've got, and then you make it all into this data model. This is where it gets unbelievably exciting. So now on week 3, what we start to go to is building stuff from it. So what I've built as examples today using that data model is a few things. I've built a business plan, I have built a proposal, a financial forecast, a statement of work, and where's the final one that we done? Yeah, I think that's all of them. So because we have went through step 1 of getting our data and structuring it, we went through module number 2 of processing our data. Now we can do unbelievably interesting things with it. So the first thing that we could do is we could build a proposal. So we just say, Claude, can you build us a proposal using data A, B, and C? So let's get an example, see what that looks like. So this is actually the brand colors and brand assets that that Growth Path use. And if you kind of go through it, it's a fairly nice looking presentation, and it's at least a good starter for 10. So it takes you through what the challenges for the business, the cost of inaction, our approach. And I built this unbelievably quickly. Some of the ones that I've built for more complex processing and types of stuff are a lot more in depth and stuff like that. And to do this, because we've got the data model, literally took 20 seconds to a minute, however long the LLM got to process it. Then we built some other documents. So if I just go back to Obsidian, so we've got a business plan. So let's have a look at our business plan document. So here is a business plan that's been created from Growth Path. So it looks quite nice. It's got the table of contents it's building for us. And then once again, it's on the brand colors and the font strategy for Growth Path. So like they kind of use this deep green and the secondary green, that's their primary colors. So when you start to read through it, this is all coming from that one place. And once again, this is a fairly simple example. It goes through its services, the revenue mix, the leadership team, and it gives us a real great start for 10 to go and get started. Same for if we go to the statement of work. So I'm not sure how many people here write statement of works. If you're in a company that have done 10 before, you've got really great examples that you can use again and again. So here we've built a statement of work. It's been prepared from Google, from Hoddle McDougall. It's got the executive summary, the goals, the investment summary, the scope of work. And you can see even things like it's keeping tables on one page and not breaking them over different pages. So this looks to me unbelievably good. And then just looking through different people. Love it. And then last but not least, let's go through the spreadsheet version. And what this has done, it has built a revenue forecast for Growth Path. So the revenue and top line numbers coming in. And as you can see, it's writing the formulas as well. This is a really simple one. I have done unbelievably complex ones before, but this is just for the stream. We've got the kind of costs and what we're paying for, and then an overall P&L summary with a nice little dashboard. So for those of you that hate spreadsheets and making spreadsheets, you can use a tool like this to get to the first iteration to save you a little bit of time. So that then is all of the different stuff that we have kind of built all from that data model. So that's the type of things you can build in week 3. Everything, so any kind of presentations, spreadsheets, that type of stuff, all using your data model. And then on the final week is the thing where you start to build more complex stuff. So I've kind of got 2 examples. I've got one where I build a podcast using ElevenLabs. I don't think you'll manage to hear it at the moment, but essentially I use that same data model to build a podcast. So if I just start that here.
Welcome to the...
I know you can't hear that at the moment because I've got these in, but essentially this is a 3-minute podcast on why you build stuff. And then I've also got this one for Gamma, which is that more complex PowerPoint system. So if I just go to Gamma, cool. So this is a different type of PowerPoint that's been built for it, and you can see this one is a lot more complex. So this one's kind of using very nice imagery and stuff like that. But once again, it works in the exact same way. You go through the learning module, you learn kind of what to do, you hook it up to the external API, and then the API does it. And then for those of you that have not worked with APIs before, it is working within a system programmatically instead of working with a username and password. So if you have got access to, for example, Gamma, ElevenLabs, HubSpot, so all that type of stuff, then that would be you would access that via the API, which would be unbelievably cool. So just to finalize that one, so for module 4, you will need to have access to those systems. So for each one of them, you would have to be paying for it. So I pay for Gamma, I pay for ElevenLabs. So the way that you would have to do is actually have access to that particular platform. But for any of the platforms that you use day to day, albeit Figma, Canva, the majority of them have got APIs now. So just read through the documentation and then ask Claude, have they got an API that it can build the different things from? And the way that these APIs work is that you use these credentials and then you put the credentials in. So there's some additional training in there. But the key thing is that we can build these more complex assets really quickly. And the final one I'm going to take you through is I used all of this to build my overall marketing campaign for the different assets for building things on LinkedIn to take the CoEngineers brand to it. So I hooked my data model to the Gemini Nano Banana API. So I set up a Gemini API token. Then I said to Claude, can you create me 20 images? And we kind of worked through it a little bit, but for funny things that are going to be introduced each one of our labs. So here it built these 20 strips for me. So on day number 1, you got to meet. So this is going to be the kind of swan song of what you're going to be learning. And we can go through these memes that we kind of built, or these strips. So I used all the things that I'd learned through the way to build these up using the API in week 4. So first of all, we asked Claude, can you go to the Gemini API and can you build me a cartoon strip using my HODL avatars? And can you build one that's funny and it kind of speaks about his first experience with Claude Code? You can see it's a little bit of a Matrix moment where he's like, whoa, what's happening here? Then on the next one, we kind of had a chat with Flora, and she's taken HODL through what Parrot is and why he might find it useful. Then the next, Angus takes us through why we might want to have a kind of good folder infrastructure and what that might look like. But then that famous bit that he's not actually got a very good folder architecture himself. Then we've got our kind of our friend Isla, who's our marketing team, and she's building all these documents. And it's what is the actual final document. And then finally, Flora takes HODL through and says, this is going to kind of put some tags into your information and do it. So all this was built just using the methodology that I kind of went through. So because I'd structured all my data well, I had processed all the data that I wanted, I had built example assets like my brand kit, the images that I'm going to be using, then everything was easy to do. And each one of them were exactly the same. So building my final version of a document, building a new slide deck, building a PowerPoint, and that type of stuff. So I won't go through all these, they're all available in the CoEngineers website, but that is just a little bit of taking you through how it works. So just going to do a quick final summary before we end the session. So all you need to do then, rounding this up, is come into the CoEngineers website, go through the installation instructions, go through the prerequisites, which is a Claude Code license and downloading the repository. And then all you need to then run is this command from Claude Code to do each one of those things. So on week 1, as we've kind of spoke about, you're going to build your digital vault. On week 2, starting on Monday, you're going to process your data. On week 3, what you're going to do is you're going to take that data and build assets out of it. So things like PowerPoints, financial forecasts, business plans, statement of works. And then finally, on the final week, for whatever APIs that you use or you want to subscribe to, there will be an additional charge for this year if you wanted it. So you'd have to go and pay for the specific API, but you can start to build out more richer things. And the examples that they use is using Nano Banana to build images, using Gamma to build presentations, to use ElevenLabs to build digital podcasts, to use HeyGen to build digital avatars, and to build social media campaigns using the Canva design tool. So that is an hour, and I'd hoped to run this for about an hour, so I think we've had some pretty good time. Any final questions from anyone before we end the stream? Well, thank you for everyone. It's been the first time I've streamed in an incredibly long time, so I've got no doubt that I have been repeating a whole bunch of words and I have had a whole bunch of cues and ticks. So if you've got any feedback, please either reach out to me on a thread on LinkedIn, reach out to me on this YouTube channel, reach out to me on private contact comments on LinkedIn, or reach out to us at CoEngineers. So it'd be hello@CoEngineers.ai. But thank you for spending an hour with me, and I will look forward to next week building something that's a little bit more sophisticated when we start to build our Typeform competitor. Cheers, everyone. Have a cracking Sunday, and